Good morning. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first Ag Technology Innovation Gateway. I'd like to acknowledge our distinguished guests from the consulates of the Republic of China and Malaysia. And I'd also like to acknowledge our foundation partners of SparkLabs Cultivate, Hort Innovation and the Cottenham Research Development Corporation. My name is Carolyn James and I'm the manager of the GATE, the Global AgTech Ecosystem, which has been established in Orange by the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries in March this year. Thank you for joining us. Today we'll be talking about the GATE, what it does, and most importantly, showcasing to you the amazing innovation and products and entrepreneurs that we, the New South Wales Government, are nurturing in the ag technology space. It's great to have you here today, people from New South Wales, from around Australia and around the world. In this room we have investors, research organisations, agribusinesses and technology companies, food manufacturers and of course primary producers. Today's proceedings are in three parts. I'll tell you a little bit more about the GATE. Secondly, you'll hear from two speakers, one on the future of food technology and also another on new connectivity solutions for on-farm applications. And finally, you'll hear from our new GATE incubation cohort about the innovations they're working on. The New South Wales Minister for Primary Industries, the Honourable Niall Blair, MLC, will join us at the end of the session to close the ceremony. Before I go on, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about the GATE. We think that the GATE is a unique and exciting venture in the agricultural innovation space. I've worked for the Department of Primary Industries for 5 years, and I live in Orange in New South Wales. That's 3 hours west of here. It's a mixed farming region with fabulous wines, and you can basically grow anything there, except oranges. Orange is also the headquarters of the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. You may not know, but New South Wales is the only state that actually locates its headquarters for its Department of Primary Industries in an agricultural region. The Department of Industry has been around for 100 years, and throughout that department's histories, people have been researching and delivering research to farmers to increase their productivity and profitability. For example, producing new plant varieties that are suitable for Australian climates, improving animal genetics, again, to cope with Australian climate, and of course, looking at better farm management techniques to manage our scarce resources such as water. My point is, we've always been innovating in the department. But today, the challenge is different. What we need to do is fast-track that innovation and integrate it with emerging technologies to raise productivity and profitability. So are we up for this challenge? I think we are. You may not know, but actually the New South Wales DPI is the largest agricultural research provider in the country. We're actually larger than CSIRO in terms of effort in agricultural research. Our portfolio value is over $500 million. And we have an array of research stations across multiple locations, multiple climatic zones, and exploring multiple commodities. This means we can trial and test a vast array of products and technologies from around the world and suitable to Australian climates. We have the expertise of over 650 scientists and researchers. And what I'm most proud of to work for this organisation, we're actually recognised in the top 1% of research organisations around the world. So with this foundation and this expertise, we are well placed to lead agtech innovation in Australia. In particular, there are two things that make us different. We have our own research pipeline of high-quality innovations that we can explore for their commercial potential. Secondly, we can foster entrepreneurs and provide collaboration opportunities with the private sector to increase technology adoption that will benefit Australian producers and drive transformational change. So the GATE is really the coalescence of all of those opportunities into a focal point. The gate itself has 4 key elements: the facility, the program, the collaborations, and the projects. This is our new gate facility. It's been built in orange, and we see it as the flagship to highlight the ag technology capability of the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries to the world. Importantly, the gate is actually embedded in one of those research stations that I just showed you. And this allows the participants in the gate to get a hands-on understanding of the technology that they're trialling in the field. The second element of the gate is our program. This is a program similar to other programs you've seen around Australia, where we're fostering ag tech startups. The gate is open to individual entrepreneurs and businesses at different stages of development. We offer an end-to-end service. We combine early stage mentoring, we can incubate people. For those more mature companies, we offer an acceleration service, and throughout that we offer a business support service underlying it, and we conclude each year or each cycle with an investor showcase, the first of which is what you're here today to do. What makes the gate different from other incubators and accelerators is that we also take our own DPI researchers through this same program so that they can look at their research outputs from the same commercial perspective. And we offer those, as I've said, those collaboration opportunities to entrepreneurs to trial and test their ideas on our sites. The third is our foundation partners and our collaborators. I've mentioned before the Hort Innovation and Cotton Research Development Corporation. They are foundation partners in the gate. They are the large research providers nationally for horticulture and cotton research. They too are looking at the commercial opportunities of their research portfolio, and they're looking to take some of those projects and products through the gate in collaboration with the DPI. Our other partner is Spark Labs Cultivate, and you'll hear more about Spark Labs later today. They are a venture capital and acceleration service provider within the gate. But we have a few more other collaborators in our ecosystem. In addition to those research providers and our corporate partner, Spark Labs Cultivate, we have ongoing relationships with technology providers such as Cisco, who again you will hear from later today. We also connect with the rural community and farmers and school students in our outreach program. So in true sense, we do really have an ecosystem. The other element we have is we've gone global. You'll hear and you'll see today a stand from the UK government where we've just broken an exchange of ag technology researchers and startups between us and the UK, and in 2019 we'll be setting up a similar program of exchange with India. And finally, the gate is its people and its projects. We've only been around although we've been here only 6 months, we've already had 40 participants in the gate. And today, you'll hear from these people, our latest incubation cohort. So when you draw all of these elements together, we believe the gate is a true ecosystem in ag technology for Australia. We have a program that ranges the entire spectrum, from idea to incubation to venture capital to delivery. We have a mixture of public sector projects coming through the DPI pipeline and private sector projects coming from our entrepreneurs and through our other partners. We've got these collaboration arrangements with R&D providers, with international governments, and with capital providers as well. But I want to leave you with this. The key point of difference about the gate is that it provides a unique access to DPI expertise, that expertise that is recognised in the top 1% globally. As I said, we're only 6 months old. But I believe that the gate and the DPI will become a national focal point for agtech innovation. And it will help enhance the Australian agricultural industry, which is currently valued at $60 billion and set to grow to $100 billion by 2030. As I've said, the gate is a collaborative ecosystem, and I would like to introduce one of our key partner organisations, Spark Labs Cultivate, which is co-located at the Gate in Orange. Spark Labs Cultivate is actually linked to a broader international technology acceleration and venture capital business known as Spark Labs. To talk more about Spark Labs, I'd like to ask Jimmy Kim, one of the foundation partners from Seoul, to speak about Spark Labs and the Gate. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Kim, and I'm one of the founding partners of Spark Labs. There's a joke going in Spark Labs. There's 7 co-founding partners, so there's more founders than employees. So it's not, when they say founding partner, it doesn't really mean that much. But thank you for coming here today. It's great to be here today. Just wanted to give you a background on Spark Labs. That Spark Labs was founded 6 years ago in Seoul, Korea, with the mission of helping startups go global. And over the 6 years, we've invested in 120 companies. And we've helped them go global, and we've been replicating that success. We've been trying to replicate the success in cities like Beijing, Hong Kong, Taipei, in Orange, and also, of all places, Oman, and there's more cities to come. We believe, so Spark Labs has evolved not just as a single accelerator in Seoul, but evolved into a global accelerator network that spans many, many cities, and also venture capital. Well, why am I here today? Well, I think 8 years ago, I was doing a business, and then Kevin is back there. Cisco was an investor in my company, and one of the major places they took us first was Perth, because we were providing solutions for money. So I've been here many, many times, and some of the fund LPs are from Australia. And one of the founding partners, Frank Meehan, who's here today also, is Australian also. I love Australian beef and Australian food. So when we had the opportunity to come to Australia, we jumped on it. And we saw an opportunity that at least that we believe that we will try to help Australian startups go global, but also introduce other startups who want to break into the Australian market today. And we're very happy that we're going to graduate our first cohort today. And we hope that, and also, we're also very, very interested in the startups that you'll see today also. And there's one thing that I want to end with right now. We have a saying in Africa, they say, it takes a village to raise a child. Meaning that for a child to raise, everybody has to contribute, right now. Now, we really believe that, and we really need to make the village bigger. And a couple years ago, when I went to Taipei, I was going to church, and I saw an ad for a small group, and it said, it really resonates with the spirit that we have right now. If you want to go fast, it says, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And we're very, very happy with our partnership with the DPI, and we hope to go far together. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jimmy. Good morning, everybody. My name's Michael Bullen. I'm Deputy Director General for New South Wales DPI. I work with Carolyn at the Gate, and really pleased to be here today to introduce our next speaker. One of my roles, I'm very fortunate to judge the President's Medal, which is the preeminent fine food and wine showcase for the Royal Agricultural Society in Sydney. And Ed and I both judge that program, and we get to travel across Australia judging the businesses that are finalists in the President's Medal. And we're not judging the quality of their product or produce because they've already won championship medals from the RAS. What we're judging is the sustainability of their business from a social, economic and environmental perspective. And because we're travelling across Australia, we get to spend a lot of time together having a range of conversations around a lot of interesting things. And when we're looking around for a keynote speaker, I couldn't think of anybody better than Ed, who covers the range of things from innovation, technology, food and the customer. Because ultimately, what's AgTech about? AgTech is about helping farmers grow food and fibre for people to be able to eat and wear. And so we need to be always thinking about where does that take us from the consumer's perspective. So I look forward to hearing from Ed as he gives us the keynote speech today. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Hey, how are you guys? You all good? I was delighted to be asked to come and speak to you here today. Actually, pleasantly surprised, Michael. But I think, in some ways, my perspective is maybe a little unique in that my career splices together a whole range of different skill sets. I started out cooking when I was 14. After I'd been expelled from my second high school, and my father decided that it was really time for me to learn some discipline. I worked in restaurants all the way through school, went off to uni, did an arts law degree, but decided that I didn't want to hang out with lawyers anymore. There's no lawyers here, are there? It would have been my hell. And so I went back into the food industry. Since then, ended up working the last 16 years also in food media. And I guess what I've come to learn is that all these different parts of my life, whether it's in law, in history, in food, or in television, in radio and in print, essentially my job is communication. It's just a question of what language you use. And I'm hoping today I might be able to communicate some of my ideas and also some of my really serious concerns about the future of food. I would say to all of you guys here, first of all, we need your innovation. We need your research, and then what we really need to do is to export those ideas. And if you want to put it into a historical context, and I should mention I'm a history graduate from uni, so this will infuse a little bit of what I talk about. The great English historian Edward Thompson wrote in the 1950s, and he was sort of reviewing the fall of civilizations. And he brought together works from Herodotus and Thucydides, from Socrates and Cicero, and eventually he found a really common theme, which he brought down to a couple of really basic principles. Civilizations fall when their governments are no longer able to provide the essential resources for the continuance of a society. Food, water, shelter, and security. Now, I don't want to sound like Chicken Little. I don't think the sky's falling just yet, but would you want to go and live in Venezuela or Zimbabwe right now? Two naturally rich countries with huge amounts of resources that are fundamentally basket cases because of the lack of ability to provide basic needs to their people. Now, not my words, but in fact the words of Dr. Margaret Chan, the recently retired head of the WHO, who said, in her opinion, food security has just overtaken climate change as the single largest threat to the world in the 21st century. And it is an idea with which I wholeheartedly agree. But the problem we've got, of course, is how do you explain food security to people, particularly in a wealthy country, where food's cheap and readily available? I reckon it comes back to what I was talking to you about, which is language, communication. How do we do that? Well, we don't have a ready word for it in English, but in Japanese there is. So in the hills around Kyoto, in the early part of the 15th century, there was a Shinto philosopher monk by the name of Mutari Norenaga, who was contemplating, as monks do, and what he was thinking about was the essential distinction that existed between his Shintoism and Buddhism. Now, Shintoism is an indigenous Japanese religion, became popular about the 5th century BC, and then Buddhism came in about the 4th century AD, and these two things very nearly mix, just not quite, on the question of spirituality. In Buddhism, they have a thing called dependent origination, or dependent arising, where all living beings contain spirit, and that's what connects us, and therefore we get reincarnation and karma. But in Shintoism, spirit is found also in inanimate objects, rainbows and waterfalls, flowers and smiles. In fact, even in everyday objects like pots and pans and vases and umbrellas. And surely these two things can't go together, because you can't be reincarnated as a vase, it's an inanimate object. And Norenaga thought deeply about it. He also realized that the Shinto religion believes that the animation or the spirit, the kami, found in everyday objects only happens when they attain age, 100 years, which comes from having developed value through use. And so rather than consider why some things become valuable, he said, why don't we question why some things don't become valuable? Now, I know I'm on a digression, but bear with me. And what he came up with was a concept called motanai. Motanai is a Japanese term that describes a profound sense of shame or regret at having squandered the intrinsic value of something useful. And what I'm going to suggest to you is that when I think about the future of food, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, I am filled with more than a little sense of motanai. And the only thing that's going to avoid it is the sort of work that you guys are doing. So let's look at some basics. Essentially, I think we need to think about how we're going to feed the world, which involves also thinking about what is food, and lastly, what are we going to do to repair or disrupt the broken market economy of food production, distribution, and consumption? Because that system is broken, but there are things we can do about it. So, how are we going to feed ourselves? What are the basics of the problem? Well, today's population, 7 billion and change, 9 and something by 2050, 11.5 billion by 2100. There's variance on those, but that's fundamentally the number. We are looking at two bisecting lines where we're going to have a really serious problem. As many of you will know, about 11% of the world's surface is currently committed to agriculture. Now, according to the FAO, that's about a third of all the potentially arable land on the planet. But that's a really misleading statistic, because actually, it's the vast majority of all the good agricultural land has already been taken. And the FAO acknowledged that even if you did hand over that two-thirds, the remaining two-thirds to agriculture, you wouldn't even double your agricultural output. Plus, with a rising population, a lot of that land is going to be needed for people to live on. In other words, we have a growing population and a falling ability to create productive agricultural land. That is an issue. Which is why I'm going to argue that while, yes, your innovation in increased productivity is very, very important, I think someone in this room or people around the world have got to start to innovate on the other side of the equation, which is reducing loss. Food waste. Motanai, food waste. Now, there are different estimates, but they don't differ by that much. Somewhere between a third and a half of all the food grown on this planet never reaches a human mouth. Now, if you ran a car company and I came to you and said, hey, listen, I've got this great new design for a car, it's really awesome, but you've got to understand, probably 1 in 2 cars you can't actually drive. There's no way you'd build that car. Well, actually, as a side note, that's actually the story of the DeLorean. That's actually what happened. And in fact, in terms of its global impact on climate, if food waste were a country, it would be the 3rd largest emitter after the United States and China. This is a truly monumental problem. And one I think here in wealthy countries like Australia, we just don't take seriously enough, because food waste is a demographic problem. In countries like the US, Canada, Australia, France, food waste exceeds 110 kilos per person per year. In developing countries, it's about 6 kilos per person per year. So clearly it's not something that has to exist, it's something we choose to allow to exist. Now, when you then take climate change into consideration, there are further challenges about how we're going to feed ourselves. You all know that climate change doesn't mean that it'll stop raining, it just means that rainfall patterns change. And where we've built our infrastructure, our dams, our railways, our farms, they may not be where the productive land is in the future, but we can't afford to move the infrastructure. It's centuries of investment. Now, if you're still not convinced about climate change, a great piece in Science, just from last month, a couple of researchers out of the University of Washington. They're entomologists who specialise in insects that affect crops and orcharding. So depending where you are on the planet, somewhere between 9 and 20% of all crops and orchards are affected by insects, with about half of that being so affected it can't be sold. Okay, that's a problem. It's manageable, I suppose. But here's the thing. A 1 degree increase in mean global temperature above a pre-industrial baseline will result in a 5% increase in that net load of insect. A 2 degree increase yields a 15% increase in those insects. 3 degrees, 25%. 4 degrees, 65%. Now, you might think we can manage insect loads affecting crops now, but I don't think, does anyone here really think we're going to meet our Paris climate ambitions at 2 degrees? We're staring down the barrel of having to use ever more intense amounts of pesticide in order to feed the planet. This is the bisecting line problem. And I think we just need to find a way to challenge our sense of paradigm at the moment that productivity is the only way forward, when waste And the control of waste might be the thing to do. A big part of what we need to do as a community, and particularly people like myself as a communicator, is to convince people that the way they think of food and what it is has to change, not only the value that they put into it. Now, I believe that food in wealthy economies has become overly commoditised. You've got a bunch of what I call meat puppets who get up on television and talk about, oh, it's glamorous, there's a little sprinkle of this darling and truffle from... That's just silliness. It's entertainment. It's soap opera. That's not food. Food is the stuff we all eat on a Tuesday night for our families. That's food. And that has become commoditised because it's cheap. And so we don't see the value in it. The real challenge in terms of you want to innovate, you want to contribute, find ways to extract the inherent embedded value that exists in ingredients that go to waste. Because current estimate in US dollar terms of the value of world food waste annually, depending whether you go with a third or a half, is between 1.3 and 2 trillion US dollars. Now that is a lot of money. You want to make cash, that is something worth doing because the asset is already there. You don't need to create the asset. It already exists. You just got to find a way to extract its value. And it can be done. Let me give you a couple of examples. 2 weeks ago, I had the great privilege of travelling up to Mariba, inland from Cairns, and hooked up with a company called Natural Evolution. Now, Rob's a very smart guy, a farmer, self-taught engineer, a bit of a tinkerer. And he's a banana farmer. You probably have some sense, if you're in agriculture, that Australia grows about 500,000 tonnes of bananas every single year. 500,000 tonnes, a lot of bananas. But of those, 160,000 tonnes are wasted. I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense of what that means visually. You all know how big a B-double truck is, yeah? I want you to imagine a convoy of B-double trucks, fully laden, travelling at 60 kilometres an hour, separated only by the minimum safe stopping distance. That convoy carrying 160,000 tonnes of bananas would stretch from here to Kiama. That is ridiculous. That is an absurdity. Because every one of those wasted bananas has the same equity value as a good banana in terms of the water, the fertiliser, the human labour, the mortgage payment on the farm, the investment in equipment. This is a very valuable commodity. And you know what happens to them? Almost all of them are simply put through a chipper and distributed back on the farm as a form of fertiliser. A tiny amount goes into stock feed, a smaller amount again into commercial paste industry for bakery, but fundamentally it's literally just squandered. So what Rob did is he invented a machine that will peel a green banana. Very difficult thing to do, to peel a green banana. Then goes through a press, which removes the water content, well, most of it. Then goes through a spinner to remove some more water content. Then it goes through a dehydrator. Essentially, for a tonne of bananas going in, you'll get 150 kilos of perfectly dehydrated starch fibre ready to be composted. Because it's been heated, its sugars have been activated and it composts very readily, which can then become a fertiliser for the farm. He'll get 700 kilos, or litres, of water, which is used to irrigate the farm. He gets 150 kilos of green banana flour. Now, green banana flour is a very interesting product. It can be used like for like at a 75% ratio in place of plain wheat flour. You can't make bread from it because there's no gluten, but in terms of everything else, it is an extraordinary product, slightly more absorbent. It's also the world's most rich source of gut-resistant starch, which makes it incredibly, incredibly healthy. The sales rate for it is rocketing. He simply can't keep up with production. At the moment, he's selling through supermarkets and health food stores here in Australia, but the real growth is the interest he's getting from China, Taiwan, Thailand, the Philippines, Japan. Has a delicate, nutty, lightly banana flavour, and his input cost is virtually nil. At the moment, his test facility at Mariba can process about 8 tonnes of bananas a week. And he's looking for investment in order to build a much larger facility because the export quantities, the export opportunities are there. That is an example of Mottainai in action. Here's another example. In Western Sydney, there's a fantastic young lady called Elizabeth. She's an entomologist, University of New South Wales graduate, and she's also a bit of a foodie. And she started a company called Vitabug. Yeah, Vitabug. Entomophagy, the eating of insects. What she does is she grows crickets, a special breed of cricket that she has developed, which has a flavour of somewhere between the astringency of asparagus and a little hint of cinnamon. They're absolutely delicious. They're dry roasted and ground to a powder. And again, she's not making, well, she also makes mealworm chocolates, but whatever. What she's making is a base ingredient that can be transferred into industry. Now, here's the advantage. If you're at all in the beef industry, you'll know that it takes a minimum of 7 kilos of grain to develop a kilo of beef. And from grass, it can be 3 to 4 times that. Pigs, half that. Chickens, half again. 1.2 is the conversion rate for crickets. And you can feed them almost any vegetable product. But here's the thing. The flour that comes out is 70% protein by weight. Now, the thing that all communities want at the moment is access to protein. As people are coming out of working class into middle class communities around the world, what they want is access to protein. This is an extraordinary opportunity here. Again, looking for investment. Because it can take waste vegetable product and convert it into something useful. Meanwhile, on the south coast of New South Wales, we've got companies developing ways of making feed for aquaculture out of seaweed and algae, thereby closing the loop again. The ideas are out there, but it needs the investment and the innovation. So what are we going to do in order to disrupt the food cycle, or the food market, and its broken cycles of distribution, manufacturing and consumption? Well, I think the biggest issue we face is market specifications. Now, this is not something you guys can change. Well, look, if you're an incredible plant geneticist, maybe you can make every single banana exactly the same. But at the moment, the market specifications for a banana is it should be curvy, but neither too nor not enough curvy. It could be a certain size, but not bigger nor smaller. Market specifications are a problem, and I want to propose a political solution. I think that in the same way a carbon price makes a company responsible for its pollution, I think major retailers should be responsible for the food waste pollution they create with their market specifications. I would suggest that the DPI or the ACCC, whoever's responsible, should designate certain retailers as a tier 1 retailer with sufficient market power as to distort the economy. And those retailers should be responsible for the impact of their market specifications. Now, you could have a peak representative body in conjunction with someone like the DPI could say, well, with bananas, yes, this lot are actually unsaleable, but the difference between saleable and rejected is this amount, and the supermarket should be responsible for that value of product. They could do it in a couple of ways. They could do what they're starting to do now with, they're selling their market second stuff as the odd bunch or imperfect picks. Let's see more of that. Or if they don't want to do that, then the equivalent value should have to be invested back into the industry in order to find uses for these products across every industry. Because unless we compel retailers to try and mitigate this problem, I don't see how it gets solved. You see, the farmers say, we have to reject these products because these are the specs given to us by the retailers. The retailers say, we only want these things because what consumers want. And consumers say, well, we want that because that's the only thing in the supermarket. I don't know any different. The only person who's really cleaning up out of this are the retailers, and I think, therefore, there is a market obligation for them to take some responsibility. Yes, it probably would see a small increase in the prices of some foods, but that would be offset by the lower cost of the blemished product that's on market, and that would, in fact, normalise over time as consumers made a market-based economic choice to buy the cheaper product. We've got to find a way in which we can reduce this waste footprint. It can be investments in things like better genetics in order to give longer shelf life to products, or better packaging, better distribution methods. Those are all innovations in the agricultural sector as well. Those things would make a difference. But then there's some other maybe more left field stuff I'd like to propose. Number one, I'd like to propose that all non-biodegradable plastic bags should be banned within 5 years. Why? Because if you want to get consumers to stop wasting food, you need to control what they're throwing out. At the same time, garbage collection domestically would go from a weekly collection to a fortnightly or even a monthly collection. Not an increase in the bin size, just give them less rubbish opportunities. On top of that, what you could do is exactly what they do in Paris and Rome and a bunch of other cities. You have a community bin, but that bin is only for food waste in a biodegradable bag. That way we can, the idea of having to carry your food waste out means people will reduce it, I believe. I think there's a normative element to that. And the second element is at least we are extracting, rather than sending to landfill where it becomes methane, we're extracting through bioingesters the opportunity to get some sort of commodity value back out of it. In the end, and also I think waste collection prices would need to go up. But look, in the end, innovation is a really important thing. But it's not only about productivity. Sometimes it's about synchronizing productivity with efficiency as well. Productivity matters, but so too does waste avoidance. And if you ask me, the future of food is going to require all of us who are deeply personally and professionally invested in the food industry to take a good hard look at how we can get more value out of what we already do, in addition to opening new doors. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank Ed for that really thought-provoking speech. And I'm sure our DPI scientists are furiously writing up all those ideas. Ed, I know you just arrived just before we began the ceremony, but I'm sure you snuck in and saw our presentations practices, because this afternoon one of our presenters is talking exactly about what you're talking about, a new product that's healthy, that takes wasted food and converts it into a new product that everyone can eat. And many of the other ideas that you've talked about today I think have been fantastic. And I know it's a horrible cliche, food for thought. But thank you again, Ed. And orange wine, Ed, the best,
hello.
Always. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Cheers.
I'd like to introduce our next presenters. As I have said, DPI is continuously involved in ag tech research. We've been innovating for 100 years. We're delighted today to have Kevin Block, the Chief Technology Officer for Cisco, and his colleague Chris Hunt, Technical Lead in IoT, to join us today. Now, Cisco has been working with the DPI staff on a major connectivity project for on-farm. It's called the Farm Decision Platform. Please welcome Kevin and Chris.
Thanks, Caroline. Good morning. 3 years ago, I met this brilliant entrepreneur, Jimmy Kim, who you've just met yourselves. We opened up an innovation centre in Perth, focused on one of Australia's strengths, mining and oil and gas. And Jimmy was brought out here because we made an investment in his startup, N3N, which had a lot of relevance to oil and gas. I bring that up because what I want to talk about is that movie played again in agriculture. And it's all really predicated on Farm Decision Platform and our partnership with DPI and others. Many of you may have heard of Cisco, a global leader in the internet and connecting everything that can be digitized. But in terms of, as a leader there, yes, but in terms of agriculture, not so much. So 3 years ago, when we said we're also really wanting to invest in agriculture in Australia, because we didn't know much about agriculture, we decided to work out who we could partner with. And I've got to say that our partnership with DPI as a government agency has been the best partnership I have ever had in government, bar none. Because with them, we also built up a rapport and relationship with Ben Watts, who's got a farm in Molong, so, as a target customer and partner. And I'll talk about Titan Class in a minute. But that was the background, and a pretty powerful background, because although we may know a lot about technology, and we could guess what are the problems in agriculture, it was only through the partnerships that you can see up there that we were able to really understand what is the vision that we could jointly have and what are the problems to be solved. And you can see up here the vision that came out of our discussions with DPI was pretty much farming is a business, just like any other business. And in order to run businesses successfully, as we all know, in 2018 and going forward is you need more data so you can make better decisions. It's as simple as that, so that you can have a better business. And the strategy that we put together was again very simple: enhancing farm productivity, really enhancing that whole supply chain through digital enablement. And the problem we were trying to solve was narrowed down to on-farm. We saw that not only as a problem in Australia, but around the world. It's all very well talking about blockchain and the digital supply chain, but if the first link in the chain is not digital, you're kind of going to struggle. So that's kind of the problem we decided to attack head on. And, you know, if there's a farm, we said, let's look pre-farm gate at this particular problem. So number one, and you can see it up here, hopefully it opens up, using farm decision platform with Cisco hardware and software underneath, with some brilliant software written by Chris and his company, Titan Class. So that was spawned also out of the Innovation Centre that we set up in Sydney a couple of years ago with our partners, DPI, and there's a few other partners. But pertaining to FDP, it was really pretty much Ben Watts in Molong and DPI and ourselves to really focus on the problem. So you can see up here, what we're doing is providing on-farm connectivity, mainly through wireless and using LoRaWAN, so we can get to 10 to 20 kilometers distance from that one farm decision platform. So, sounds simple, not so simple, but actually there were quite a few things that we were attacking at the same time. As I said, number one, connectivity. But as we saw in the past, every solution that was being put on farms by ag tech vendors was very siloed. They'd all come out with different connectivity problems and leaving farmers with actually a complex problem, a complex system integration problem, which we said we can address. So that's the first one. The second one was application integration. And the best analogy is when you look at your iPhone. An iPhone is a platform, really. Yes, it does a little bit, but really the value of the iPhone is in the apps. And we saw an opportunity for ag tech vendors to put their applications on FDP, so the northbound interface, you can see up there on the iPhone, as well as integrate anybody's sensors, which is another major issue because there's so many proprietary standards. So really what we did with FDP was to say, okay, we'll provide connectivity for ag tech applications that Cisco doesn't make. That's why we're participating with Spark Labs and a whole bunch of other innovators and incubators and so on, because it's not about Cisco creating the apps. We're not experts in agriculture. It's not about Cisco making the sensors. What we want to do is build this ecosystem that runs on this platform and provide integration for their applications to provide data collection. Big problem in agriculture is, what are you going to do with my data? So we're saying to the farmer, right off the bat, the data is with you. You own the data. It's in FDP. You tell us what you want to do with it. So that's another problem. Another issue is, as we float through Australia and you look at mobile coverage, the largest telco provides 30% geographic coverage in Australia. And where's that 30%? It's in the metro and on the highways. Not many farms there. Right? So this is a major issue. So right from the get-go, we said we're going to develop a platform that does not need internet access from day one. We can run a farm as a business without any internet access. When the NBN swings around, when we can have cloud, great, but we can do a lot right now without any internet access. So that was another issue. And we do it so that you've got choice. You can run on-prem, in other words, on the farm, or we can run the applications in the cloud if you've got internet access. Another major problem that we saw. And by the way, all of these issues, not particular to Australia. We see it around the world. We've got our CEO coming out next week. You'll see us investing quite a bit in this area to really drive agriculture here so that we can take it global, because the same problems exist in Argentina, in India, all around the world. So, with that, what I want to do now is, let me go back a step. All of this has been done almost as a startup in Cisco, which is kind of interesting. You know, we've got about 70,000, 80,000 people in the company, so we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. but really to turn, at 90 degrees and do something completely different. And do something quite innovative in terms of a new sector, in terms of a new business model, in terms of a new partnership. You name it, it's all new for us. We also decided we really need some expertise that we don't have. And we pulled in really Chris Hunt, who I'll introduce now, who literally is one of the most brilliant software engineers that I've had the opportunity to work with. He heads up this company called Titan Class, and he has written the software that runs within the Cisco hardware, I guess, and software operating system. So today is kind of interesting for us because I talked a lot about this last year. We said we're going to do all of this. And it's really a pleasure for me to be here today because a year on, I want to share with you an update on where we're at. Because everything we said we're going to do, we've done. We are now onboarding third-party ag tech applications. Northbound, we're also onboarding third-party sensors. Southbound, we don't care whose they are, we can onboard it. And I'd now like to introduce you to the man responsible for the software development that's now running in FTP, Chris Hunt.
Thank you. This feels like a Apple keynote style scenario where Steve Jobs calls one of his software developers onto the stage, and then you hear about all these stories later about how they're beaten up behind the scenes. So I hope that's not going to happen.
I could say there's just one more thing.
Just one more thing. There could be
just
one more thing in all of this as well, perhaps. This is really going to be about the what. But before I get into the what, and we've heard quite a bit of why already. I think there's an insurmountable amount of why, and almost to the point where we don't need another why. But as a software developer, one thing I noticed about a year ago when I decided to embark into this domain of agriculture was there's a lot of ag going to tech, but I didn't see a lot of tech going to ag. So I've done a lot of work over on the west coast of the US, in Silicon Valley and around there. And none of my friends, my colleagues, were really talking about doing more meaningful things than creating the next Twitter app or the next database, and it kind of felt a little bit meaningless to me. And there was an interesting stat that appeared when I started to look from 64,000 developers contributing to a survey at a site called Stack Overflow. And this report's freely available. You can go and look at it yourself. But only 0.6% of technology companies are focused on agriculture, forestry, and fishing combined. That's with a sample of 64,000 developers that information came from. Clearly, there is an imbalance here. And so, in a way, I feel like I'm on a bit of a personal mission, or we're on a mission to address that imbalance. That's, that contributes to a lot of the why here. And in summary, what we feel that we want to do here is to bring a bit of Silicon Valley thinking, a bit of the Silicon Valley way into Australian agriculture. So if there's nothing else that you remember today from my talk, I hope you remember that 0.6%, because it wouldn't be great to get back up here on the stage next year and then talk about, well, it's no longer 0.6%. We've done something to address that. What is XDP? It is this decision platform. It's it's a composite of a number of technologies, most of them that already exist, that we've brought together so that farmers can improve their decision-making process. It leverages a technology in particular called Streambed that we developed. A key point here that I'd also like to be a takeaway is that we've tried not to reinvent anything. We've focused on where there are existing technologies, proven technologies with established communities. And so Streambed is this toolkit, what we call an event-first microservice toolkit for developers. I'm not going to apologize for being technical or geeky here or anything like that. But this is kind of significant because developers are driven by what interests them. they want to work with the cool technologies, you know, and I don't think that they've been seeing agriculture, forestry, and fishing as particularly cool things, you know, that would attract cool technologies. But with this, we're going to address that, because this event-first microservice toolkit, I can tell you, is quite contemporary. It's as good as anything that you will work on in Silicon Valley. And the reason for that is because it comes from the Valley. It's integrated with Cisco's IOX router operating system so that it can be deployed at the edge. Kevin mentioned, you know, that outside of a rural community, you only have to go 10 kilometers outside of a rural center, and the internet connectivity becomes a bit wobbly at best. And so we treat the internet opportunistically, meaning that we are maximizing what we can do at the edge. When we do get internet connectivity, it's not like, you know, there's none at all. Then we synchronize through Cisco's Kinetic cloud infrastructure. And we can synchronize with third-party clouds and their vendors and distribute data and have it come back the other way as well. So a typical scenario is to collect data, feed it into the cloud, have it processed, have a bit of machine learning applied to it, and have the result pushed back to the edge. So again, these decisions can be made more locally. And then again, this key point that we're building on well-established open source software, and not just the software itself, but on their communities. That's a really significant point for us. I've not actually operated this thing before. So that was the why and the what. This is the how. So today, I'm thrilled that we can announce Streambed.io, which is a technology preview on what we've been doing at Cisco, and is a component, a very important component of XDP. And when I say XDP, I also mean FDP, sorry. It enables developers to write applications to deploy to this platform such that we can then push their applications out to the edge and look after them in a very similar way that the app stores and Google Play work in the mobile phone market. In fact, one way, as Kevin highlighted, that you can think about this is that we are kind of like a mobile phone operating system for the farm. This is very much how we position this in our own thinking. So you can go there today. I'd encourage you to come and talk to us as well at our stand as well to discuss this more. We have a getting started page on there. It's all up running right now. And so as developers or budding developers, you can actually download the environment that runs at the edge and run it on your laptop or your development machine. Develop everything locally, get it all working there, and then what you've developed there without any change can then be deployed to the cloud. A couple of other little points about Streambed as well. You know, as a contemporary microservice toolkit, it addresses security as one of the foremost goals. Security is incredibly important to us. We have the ability to encrypt data at a very fine level of granularity, and security is a big concern when it comes to IoT in general. And as Kevin also said, you know, we decided at the outset it's very important that farmers own the data and that they decide who they share that data with. Much in a very similar way to on your mobile phone, you can share your contacts in your calendars with other people as well. And then the other aspect to this toolkit is that there's a very strong emphasis on managing resources, because the further to the edge you get, the more limited the computing power becomes. So you know, there's some features about it. So Streambed.io is where to go and where you can tell your developers to go, and then come and talk to us a little bit more. So thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Chris. So just to wrap up, I'll be quick. My job as CTO is really, wear two hats. One, we want to help develop an ag tech ecosystem locally and take it globally. And we have a magnificent opportunity to do so with our partnerships. And two, to take talent like this, which we underestimate in this country. We have got the best engineers in the world, to take talent. And what Chris showed you up there in terms of microservices, I can tell you as a CTO in Cisco, Australia is 1 to 2 years behind in the development of microservices, for those of you who understand what it's all about. Behind the world. Even though we think we're a great adopter, we're not, right? This is what we need. We need to take some of the talent that we've got in this country, build it into technology like we've just seen today, and take it global. With people like Chris and people like Jimmy Kim, we need to do that, and we need to do that fast. So thanks very much. What I'd really like to say, if there are any ag tech vendors or developers out there, come and talk to us. We want to help you. A, port your application onto FTP, and B, take it global. Thanks very much.
Actually, guys, I'll get you to come this way. Thank you very much, Kevin and Chris. It's been fantastic to hear more about what Cisco's been doing, and also to hear, of course, that connectivity piece that means that we don't have to. Thank you.
I'll take both.
Oh, you take both. Fantastic.
Thank you.
I think it's really important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
As I said, it's really been fantastic to work with Cisco and DPI, particularly on that on-farm connectivity piece. I think it's really important for farmers to be aware that while they can't at this stage maybe be connected to the cloud or connected to broadband, they can wire up their farm in an effective way to make really, really functional decisions and improve their productivity right here and right now. So now we are going to show you some of the fantastic cohort that we're working through with the Gate. We've got 9 presentations for you. 3 are from our DPI researchers, and the other 6 are from external applicants that applied for the Gate earlier this year. All of our presenters have full-time jobs and run full-time businesses. They've been part of our incubation cohort since July this year. The incubation cohort's been supported by our partner CBR Innovation, which is a Canberra-based innovation and startup service led by Peter Adamak and Liz Cobold. This wasn't deliberate, but we have a fantastic variety of things to show you this afternoon. We have, not surprisingly, some apps, some technological products, but we also have some new biochemistry. We have a new food product, and we have tools and devices that are focused on things such as workforce safety and workforce availability. So, let's get started. Our first presenter is Jeff Casburn from the DPI. He's a fantastic guy. Jeff has an extensive experience in livestock management and mixed farming. He's basically lived and worked across the entire of New South Wales, starting in Goulburn, moving to Bourke, and he's now based in Wagga Wagga. Jeff has a key role in helping producers manage their livestock through good and bad seasons. Could you please welcome Jeff?
Thanks, Caroline. In the good times, farming can feel easier. There's less pressure, and as a result, we often make decisions by estimation and gut feel. We often have dry periods where we have to hand feed animals. But the rain comes, the pastures grow, and things are good again. But sometimes the rain passes us by, and before we know it, we're in the middle of a drought. Now, the problem with drought is we don't know when it's going to start or finish. And we find ourselves wishing that we'd made the decisions earlier, crunched the numbers rather than using estimation and gut feel. Hi, my name's Jeff Casburn, and I work for New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. And I've been working with farmers for 20 years, and 10 of those were helping them get through the millennium drought. I'm a member of an expert team, and together we've developed the drought feed calculator. Now let's just take a minute to think about what's going through these farmers' minds. What animals can I feed this to? How much do I need to feed? How much will it cost per head? And how long will it last? And what more will I need? For some, they'll be thinking, this is doing my head in. During the Millennium Drought, we ran hundreds of sessions helping farmers answer these very questions. Unfortunately, back then, we had to do the calculations longhand, and many farmers found this difficult and time-consuming, and that led to the development of the app. Now, there's many complicated calculations behind the app, but we designed it to be easy to use. Farmers simply select the feed from the database. They enter its price, and then they select the animals that they want to feed, the number and their weight, and then how long they're going to expect to be feeding for. Then the app does the rest. It's that easy. And farmers love it. But don't take my word for it. Let the results speak for themselves. Up until February this year, we had 10,000 downloads. The app was released in late 2014. But since February, we've had a further 6,000 downloads, a whopping 60% increase, just going to show the important need that's out there, and that the app is addressing that. What's also important to note is more than 10% of total downloads have come from India and USA, without us doing any tailoring or promotion. But it doesn't stop there. In the next few months, we hope to release a new version. We've improved it so it'll help farmers year-round. We've incorporated supplementary feeding for when pastures alone are not enough. Now, New South Wales DPI and the local land service have been working tirelessly to help our drought-stricken farmers and the communities that they support. Now let's just think about how our hard work can help farmers in other countries. Let's take farmers in the USA, for example. They have similar problems to us. They too have to crunch the numbers in the good times to prepare for the bad times. Let's just think what the drought feed calculator could achieve if we target it to specifically meet their needs. So if you're from the US or from elsewhere, and you care as much about farmers as we do, let's form a partnership. Let's work together to the betterment of all. Now, the rain will come. And when it does, we're all going to be in a better position for recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, and I thank you. And I think it's really important today we really focus on the exciting issues in agriculture and signing opportunities of agtech. But it is a hard time at the moment for farmers, and we do recognise that. Keeping that in mind, we now have an entrepreneur from Dubbo, David Allen. Dave has developed unique techniques, new inventions that will help producers identify that most valuable and often hidden resource, water. Could you please welcome David to the stage?
Thank you, Caroline. Let me tell you how we enable farmers to see where their water is. This is a typical Australian farm in drought. The surface water from the farm dams has all evaporated. Groundwater is the only secure water left, but where is it? Groundwater is hidden from both farmers and government. It is treated as a black box, separated from surface water both by management and legislation. We need to know where it is recharged, where it flows, where it can be extracted and how it can be secured. Our technology helps farmers to see what is underground. Here we see evaporation from surface water. We see wasted deep drainage from crops. There is seepage from the surface reservoir, some of it perched and some of it percolating deeply, picking up salt as it does and contaminating deep groundwater. There is a bore there, sighted blindly, which is using more electricity and producing a poorer result than it need to. With vision, the situation can be improved. Clay lining can occur on a strategic part of the farm dam, such that seepage is not wasted. A perch stacker collects seepage from another part of the dam, which can be recovered. Because of that, the farm dam needs to be full less of the time now, and evaporation loss can be reduced. Deep drainage from the crops can be regularised. That helps also with waterlogging and salinisation, which affects yield of the plants. The deep bore can be positioned to operate optimally. A shallow bore there is now positioned into a fractured rock aquifer. This is typical for stock bores where there's no other water around and it's very hard to find without imaging. Here, we towed our AgTem system across this farm for 2 hours to make this image. You can see here saline basement rock contrasting with fresh groundwater in alluvium. You can also see a strong connection between the river and that alluvium. There's our AgTem system. Also platypus, which we tow along surface reservoirs and dams to inspect seepage. In the future, we aim to take this technology in cheaper form to put on farm machines such as irrigators and tractors, so when they traverse paddocks, they can see the soil moisture profile as they traverse. In medical imaging, it's very important to see detail, so too here, and to do it cost effectively. Electrical resistivity is what we image, and we do it a whole stack of depths. Here at 1 metre deep, we can see a prior stream channel. We can see a large clay deposit, good for preventing seepage. In the south-west, there's not much there at 1 metre, but watch as I go to 12 metres. In that corner, there is a vast hole, a permeable hole, where groundwater can descend or ascend. Groundwater imaging have completed tens of thousands of kilometres of survey. We site stock bores, irrigation bores, council water bores, do aquifer interference studies for mines, and investigations of seepage under irrigation canals. There is one such investigation, 200 kilometres across, which mosaics data from very different instruments. Now, soil features and groundwater flow does not stop at farm boundaries, so the big opportunity is not just imaging individual farms, but for them to be stitched together into a mosaic, a big picture like a puzzle being put together. Governments can help themselves and farmers by providing an incentive to farmers to collect and hand in to supply data to a government facility so that it can be mosaicked together, a safe facility where it will be stored for future generations. I ask for help in extending the prototype development to see deeper and also to put this technology onto farm machines. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thank you, David. Some pretty amazing technology, all of which David has invented. And David lives just up the road from Orange, in Dubbo. Closer to home again is our next speaker. Now, ag technology is fast-paced and almost every day a new product is here, and we've already heard from Cisco on some new products coming online. Hamish Munro from Orange has a fresh approach to dealing with information and product overload. So if you could please welcome Hamish to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Hamish. In 2012, I founded a small regionally based tech company called Apticon, dealing primarily in cloud-based solutions. but more importantly, I'm a fourth generation farmer. Since 1877, my family has been dealing with technology and working out how to best utilise that for productivity and also our bottom line. But in the last 10 or 15 years, we have noticed that there has been a significant increase in technology and the information flow from it. Farmers are starting to feel overwhelmed, frustrated, and a number of other things, which is something that we wanted to address. So actually, let's address the elephant in the room, technology overload. Now, all of these apps, hardware and software are going to be critically important for us to actually deliver our goal of feeding the world into the future. But they are starting to cause a significant amount of distraction, but also consume large amounts of time through navigating between different devices. So, by solving this issue of navigation or separation, just might be the greatest opportunity for productivity increases in agriculture with the data we have at hand. So farmers don't have to feel fear of overload or separation ever again. So earlier this year, enough was enough with all of this navigation, and I decided through my company to commit our resources, and I'd like to present to you today Pear Tree. What we see, Pear Tree is a centralised dashboard that it pulls enriched data sets to give clear key messages and visualise them on a single source dashboard. For example, this is Rick's irrigation farm. All of these technologies are critical to his daily operations, but they never meet in a single point. We are building a dashboard for Rick to pull the key messages from all of these technologies and devices to allow him to run his daily operations. But more importantly, he's also using it as a communications board with his staff, his consultants, and also his business partners. Our pathway into market is primarily through subscription. We work at a business-to-business relationship with agribusiness that have an established number of clients. Firstly, through hosted pages and providing service to those clients. But we also then have an ability to create industry-defined cookie-cutter pages for those clients. And when they see the value of Pear Tree, they can actually request customised pages so that we can actually then charge a fee for service. Our marketplace, which is critical to underpin the co-beneficial benefits that we are trying to encourage within our ecosystem, are being seen where we have smaller, high-quality suppliers actually seeing that we can complement their business and also allow them to maintain their core business operations. They are seemingly happy to co-locate and cross-promote their services with others to allow purely for the advantage of a centralised data. Our team, myself, the ideas guy, Mickey, the problem solver where nothing's a problem, and Robbie, the go-to guy, or dog's body. Through our traction, we have already been introduced to all of these partners through dashboards for a food manufacturer looking to improve scheduling into the factory by improving practices of irrigation on farm, through a commodity marketer looking to improve market insights and also business services to his customers. And thirdly, fruit growers looking to monitor cold chain stores in export for high-valued crops and shelf life. We've also worked with New South Wales DPI's Farm Decision Technology Project and worked in the LoRaWAN and IoT space. And finally, we have a number of farmers that are very keen to understand the benefits of centralising but also sharing data in an environment where there is trust, reward and transparency. So our advantage is simple. We are independent. We create an umbrella approach to all farm data, and that we also never compete with our providers. There are similar concepts available in data aggregators or dashboarding components, but they're always seemingly aligned with a particular business, hardware or software. And we do not believe that farmers should be forced into actually a single suite of supplies, and that they should have the freedom to move freely. Our approach future-proofs these farmers by allowing them to move freely through time and continue their data sets on their dashboard. So, are you our next client? We're looking to build a strong ecosystem in agricultural productivity, but also we're looking collaborators and also for investment of $100,000 to continue building beta pages for early adopters and also for industry-defined pages. Thank you. My name is Hamish Monroe.
Thank you. Thanks, Hamish. Great job. Often when we see a news story about ag tech, we see a picture of a drone. In fact, we always see a picture of a drone. Our next presenter actually works with drones as well, but he's turning this cliche into a powerful tool and looking at converting drone data collection and applying it to emerging technologies. Could you please welcome Tristan Steventon from StevTech.
Australian farmers have unprecedented access to high-quality data and high-tech equipment. Yet my experience is that most of this high-tech data and high-tech equipment is not being used to its full potential. Hi, I'm Tristan Steventon from StevTech. I'm the founder of StevTech, your decision agricultural partner. Now, I'll go into what I mean about decision agriculture in a minute, but first I'll just take you on the journey that I've gone through in the last couple of years building StevTech and where I come from. I grew up on the family farm in central west New South Wales between Parkes and Dubbo, and just as self-steering tractors were sort of becoming a thing in agriculture, I left to join the army. I spent a brief 20-year hiatus with the military as an officer, and as pictured there, I'm in command of all Australian commandos in Afghanistan. Now, in that role, and the reason I bring that up, is in that role I had to collect, analyse, decide on and then act on vast quantities of data from disparate streams. Now it is overwhelming, but there are techniques and principles that I developed over that 20 years of decision making in those environments, which made that actually very simple, very easy, and very timely. It struck me at the end of my 20 years that is actually something that could translate into agriculture quite nicely. Agriculture brings in vast streams of data, and the results of your decisions have to be actioned in a paddock or in the field. So I uprooted the family from Sydney here, moved them out into the Central West, and we've kicked off StevTech. So what problem are we trying to solve? Well, the problem that is represented on the board here doesn't have to be explained to anyone. There's global population is growing, arable land is decreasing, and techniques of today or yesterday for agriculture will not feed the population of tomorrow. But is this all sorted? We have high quality data, as I said, and high quality equipment. That is the expectation of the solution. Combine those two together, Bob's your uncle, we are now being more precise, more productive. I travelled over 65,000 kilometres in the car last year talking to agronomists and growers, and almost universally, that was the expectation, but this was the reality. Farmers have other specialists that look after the complexity of their accounting, the complexity of their banking, and the complexity of agronomic decision making. What StevTech is providing is reducing that complexity of data. Essentially, what we do is take lots of data, turn it into a format that suits the palate of the decision maker, and produces simple in-farm, in-paddock solutions. We manage the collection of that data from collection all the way through to action, making sure that the decision maker is comfortable with what information he's receiving or she is receiving, and how, and then what the end result of that information is going to be. We layer everything, all the traditional layers that you've seen before, soil testing, yield data, NDVI from satellite, whatever it is that you have that you want to make a decision on, with new and emerging tech. And that's one of the focuses of the business, is to use the very rich data layer that drones provide to augment what you already have. Just quickly, I'll go through two simple solutions that I've developed, and these are two of many more. First of all, in cotton, we run a cotton decision support replant support, I should say. So as cotton's emerging, as it's coming up, there's a time window, very precise time window, where the agronomist or the grower may want to replant that cotton. The drone goes over the paddock, finds all the cotton plants, turns that information into a picture, which is a geo-referenced picture, saying this is where you have met your emergence targets and this is where you have not. That information then goes straight into the planter. The cotton grower can see it on his screen, so instead of looking out the window and trying to figure out where the zone changes, he now just looks at his screen and off he goes. The second one is fallow weed detection. Again, very simple. Drone goes over the paddock, finds all the weeds, turns that into a file. They can go into a individually nozzle-controlled spray rig, and then spray, don't spray. In that case, 70% chemical savings, good for the farmer's wallet, and also good for the environment. In terms of traction, I'm contractually arranged with Hutchinson Pearce and Chesterfield Australia, although I'm platform agnostic. I go across Case, New Holland, whatever. It's all about turning data into action in the paddock. We've got some good growers and good companies on board at the moment, and we're linked with other people such as the Institute for Drone Technology to make sure that I'm at the forefront of that drone layer, understanding what's coming out, understanding compliance, and all the rest of that. So what am I here for? I'm here essentially to test my ideas with the specialists within the DPI, but also open myself up for investment. If people like this sort of style of decision-making and non-traditional data layers, then, you know, if let's say someone wanted to have that service in Griffith or up in Dalby or somewhere like that, then I'd be interested in investment for that purpose. I'm also networking, finding other partners to work with. I use networks to do things that I can't do, and I'm also looking for talent. I'm looking to expand, so if you're someone who wants to work at the cutting edge of ag tech in the field, or you know someone that is, then please come and have a chat with me over in the room just after this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tristan. Our next presenter is Ashley Miles, and her day job is running a large family farm at Trangie, which is just west of Dubbo. Ashley is going to outline her solution to a really common problem for Australian farmers, and that is finding quality farm workers. Could you please welcome Ashley?
Hi, everyone. My family and I are farmers. Sometimes people say farming's a bit of a risky business. I'd like to think that we make educated risks. So I took a risk the other day. My farm and our family farms are quite big. They get quite busy, and we're often under great time pressure to produce food. So we needed some extra staff. So after a bit of skill checking, a bit of Facebook, a bit of the land and neighbours, we found someone to come and do some sowing for us. So he presented himself well, and I took him down to the paddock. And he said, "Yeah, I've got these skills." I said, "Great, no problem." And so I took him down and I showed him the paddock. Now, this is a massive paddock, about 1,000 acres. You would never walk to the end of it. You'd have to drive. I showed him the tractor. It was a big tractor, 500 horsepower and a massive 60-foot planter on the back of it. He said, "I've got the skills to do it." I said, "Great." I left him alone. I had other stuff to do and we're very busy. So I left him alone. I got a call about 2 hours later and he said, "You better come down to the paddock. The tractor stopped and I don't know why." And I was like, "Oh, righto." So he sounded a bit panicked. I jumped in the ute and I went flat out, you know, dust going everywhere, 100 miles an hour. And I stopped to this. Now, not only did I take a risk that day, I think you'll all agree with me that I lost. And we not only lost a couple of $100,000 in production, because that whole setup's worth about $700,000, I also lost the opportunity to produce food. So here's my problem. Here's my neighbour's problem. Here's the industry's problem right now. How do we validate the skills that they have? Because I might hire one person, or I might hire 20 people at different times through the year. So how do I quickly and effectively validate what they say they can do under the time constraints that I have? I need some sort of tool that will help me separate the rubbish and get the great, because our industry needs the great. So I'll give you a tool that we've developed. It's called the Training Paddock. It is an online portal. CV specific to the employee that is independently validated by the farmers, by the very people who know what skills they should have. So how does it work? So our employee gets their profile, specific to them, unique. And then we all go to work. We go and get our on-the-job skills. We learn while we work. They develop their skills and they capture that and they put it on their profile, and then we send it to the employer. Quick, easy email, it is validated by the employer, and then it becomes visible. That skill is on that employee's profile. The more skills they do, the better they are, the better their reputation, the lower my risk is when I go to hire people, because I can't afford that risk every day. It values on-the-job skill development. It gives trust back to me, lets me be productive. When going into the GATE program, in 1 week, we had 75 conversations. 80% of those employees wanted to sign up to this subscription-based platform straight away. That's massive. Imagine what we could do in 10 weeks. So where are we now? Well, we're ready to go to prototype. We know what this looks like and we know the future of this. We know how valuable it can be. Then let's get it out there onto the farms. Let's give farmers tools. We love tools. Anything that will make our lives easier and less risky. Let us be productive. And so then let's move to commercialisation. This is a revenue-based product. It's got a firm and solid subscription. We know where the future is, and it's also got other value-adding aspects to this. If you're passionate about our industry, if you love food, if you want to have our industry grow to $100 billion in 12 years, then come and talk to us, because this is a tool that our industry needs. We want to be productive. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Putting technologies with animals is tricky. Animals are actually less fascinated with technology than we are, but the one thing they'll always try and do is eat it. But the value and benefit of tracking and collecting individual animal data is enormous. Tom Gunthorpe, a farmer and technologist from Yass, near Canberra, has a product he'd like to talk to you about. Please welcome Tom.
Thank you, Carolyn. Wow, the last time I had a mob this big in front of me, we saw them. Hi everyone, my name is Tom Gunthorpe and founder of AgriScan. I run a fine wool merino and black Angus cattle self-replacing herd in Yass. I've also got 30 years experience in electronics, IT and warehouse logistics. Drawing on that combined experience, I've developed this value proposition I'm presenting to you today. UHF, RFID, electronic identification for livestock. Traditionally, farmers have been managing their mobs through gut feel or mob-based averages, which is just on a small sample base, just giving a single basic decision point. However, as we all want to improve our businesses, a lot of industry training programs that have been brought to the farmers all have an individual animal management component in those programs. However, that only works if you've got the animals tagged. Similarly, the regulators are all pushing for greater biosecurity traceability. But at whose cost? It's always the farmer that pays. Cost is the single greatest barrier to entry for electronic identification for livestock. The solution is to use lower cost UHF RFID. The UHF industry has been growing at exponential rates since 2012, with industries like retail, logistics and transport leading the way. The significant investment in that arena has been driving the costs down and will continue to do so. The reasons that people are uptaking this technology is the advantage of what our UHF offers itself, and that is that that the readers can read hundreds of tags a second. They can read all tags in the field at the same time. The readers can manage multiple antennas, giving a much greater read area or pattern. Furthermore, the tags are writable. That's a whole subject on its own, but just imagine being able to record the vaccine and drench history in the tag of that animal for the life. The tags that we offer are the same form factor that we've been using for many years, both for sheep and cattle. The applicators are the same ones that we've also been using for years. So the entry here is easy for the farmer. They've been using this equipment all the way through. However, the tags mean nothing without a reader. I partner with a company in Taiwan to manufacture the reader that we've developed. The reader itself has Bluetooth, meaning that we can Bluetooth to existing data loggers where people already have those. The software is completely integrated. Most readers are an endpoint and require middleware software to run another computer. We've pushed all that inside the reader. The reader itself is Internet of Things ready, in that we can send all sorts of different protocols to the cloud, including things like Amazon Web Services. We built a GPS in, and the reason we did that was two. One, it gives me an accurate clock, but two, I can georeference where those tags are read, also creating a little bit more biosecurity metadata, if you like. The market, 20 million sheep are tagged each year in Australia. It's a $5 billion industry growing at about 3%. Cattle, a $16 billion industry. To date, we're actually production ready. We've been producing in low volume. CSIRO have used version 1 of my reader with their honeybee sudden hive collapse initiative. The University of New England Smart Farms, they're actually looking to develop systems just to count sheep using this reader. I've been engaged with independent industry trials just to prove the technology itself. And just recently, I've joined the MLA Red Meat Digital Forum that they're running at their AGM later this year on 5 farms. Moving forward, I'd like to collaborate with ag tech-minded companies to further develop the software and integrate it into on-farm systems. I'm seeking partners to market and distribute the product in Australia and internationally. And with industry support, firstly, I'd like to thank the Gate for making today available, and with further industry support, to get this technology into our farming systems. Let's not use old technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Dr. Robin Heen is an economist with the Department of Primary Industries, and she's based in Armidale. Her day job involves looking at farm businesses and industry sectors and evaluating their performance. She also has a passion for rural communities and has seen the toll that farm accidents have on farmers. She's working to help farmers stay safe. Please welcome Robin.
Thank you, everyone. Let me tell you about Holly Raper, a 23-year-old British woman who had high hopes and dreams for her future. She was backpacking in Australia and picked up work on a farm. Bang! Her life changed forever. Holly had a quad bike rollover accident, leaving her a paraplegic with a catastrophic brain injury. Quad bikes are extremely vulnerable to rollover at speed, on steep slopes and bumpy terrain, but they are integral to farming operations worldwide, and their use in recreation, for recreation and tourism is burgeoning. In Australia, since 2011, 118 people have died in quad bike accidents, costing the economy over $300 million. 2/3 of these deaths have been on farms. Thousands more people have been injured. Holly's injuries cost $12 million in compensation. Quads are the leading cause of deaths and serious injuries on Australian farms, and I want to do something about it. I have developed QuadSafe to prevent quad bike accidents from occurring. A web-based portal is managed by the farm manager. and an app is installed by the farm worker, and they mount their smartphone on the quad bike. The app collects data from motion sensors in real time, even when not in internet range. And the app then syncs data back to the portal when an internet connection is detected. Let me give you a taster. The farm manager registers their property on the portal and draws safety zones based on their knowledge of the terrain. More experienced riders are given less stringent safety limits in each of the zones. The farm manager receives reports on the riding behaviour of their farm workers. When a farm worker rides within their safety limits, their route appears as green. When they exceed their safety limits, their route is orange or red. As the farm worker rides around the property, the app monitors their riding behaviour against their safety limits and alerts them in real time. APKs sit behind the app and monitor motion sensors, and they're demonstrated here for the slope and bump algorithms. The target market for QuadSafe is primarily farm businesses that are serious about improving their farm safety practices. But the recreational and tourist markets will also be interested. This is a huge opportunity. There are over 200,000 quad bikes in operation in Australia and many more worldwide. I already have interest from a New Zealand company who may consider being a distributor. An insurance company has also expressed interest. The first prototype of QuadSafe will be available in October, and I'm seeking interest from farmers to participate in a trial to test the tool, and potential partners who might be interested in ongoing development. I've created QuadSafe to prevent accidents like Holly's. Please come and see me and my developer, Max Saraswat of Startuptivity, in the exhibition space, where we'll be running a prototype. Thank you. That's Mac.
Thank you very much, Robin. Look, Australia has a reputation for clean and green production. Farmers in Australia care for their environment and they try and minimise the use of chemicals. If there were more alternatives out there to the current herbicides and pesticides, farmers would use them. A local company from Orange called Non-Tox has that alternative. Could you please welcome John Garrett from Non-Tox?
Thank you, Carolyn. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We at Non-Tox believe that we have to think differently about herbicides. Herbicides have worked, but they contain poisons and toxins. They're becoming less and less effective each year. Yet we persevere with poisons. Why do we persevere with poisons? There has to be a better solution. Richard Clark, the immediate past president of the Grains Research Development Corporation, was reported on Farm Online saying about his $45 million joint venture with Bayer in Germany. Their first priority, their very first priority, was to find a herbicide that will kill resistant weeds. We at Non-Tox believe the better solution is to stop looking for poisons. Our environment does not need more poisons. We're not bold enough to say that we found the Holy Grail, but we do have a herbicide that will kill resistant weeds. It is environmentally friendly, and you can safely spray it around playgrounds, parks, recreation areas, waterways, roadsides, and rail corridors. What is more, we have Australian regulatory approval for the manufacture and sale of non-tox. In addition, we are applying for organic certification. The global market for herbicides is substantial. We're talking about 35 billion US. Australia, a shade over 1 billion Aussie dollars. Now, our early users are environmentally responsible agencies. In our customer validation, we looked right across the board at all of our possible users. We have collected some interesting data about herbicide consumption. We put all of those to one side for the moment, and we selected two. One being, we're all familiar with golf clubs, and we're all familiar with councils. If we supplied the herbicidal requirements of just 1% of the golf clubs in Australia, or 1% of the councils, then the gross revenue for that year would be $4.5 million. And that is without taking into account any of the other users. We believe we have a game changer, an environmentally friendly herbicide that will kill resistant weeds. And we know it works. This slide here is a picture of fleabane. Some of you are probably familiar with it. It is an invasive weed that infests our crops and pastures. Some crops have yield reductions of up to 25% because of that weed. It is resistant to most herbicides. Now, the picture on the right was taken by Tony Cook. He's a technical weed specialist at the Department of Primary Industries Research Laboratory in Tamworth, 4 days after spraying it with non-tox. The next slide here is blackberry bush. This is an environmentally sensitive area around Oberon, New South Wales, along a waterway. Blackberries are notoriously hard to kill. That was sprayed with non-tox. 8 weeks later, when we revisited the site, it was dead and there was no interruption or damage done to the local environment. We have, with our company, a passionate group of people who want to bring this product to market. We have backgrounds in science and in farming, finance, and law. We are ready to build our factory and bring this product to market as quickly as we possibly can. We need to raise $1 million to achieve that goal. If you would like to be part of a revolution to change the way we think about herbicides in Australia, then come on a journey with us, and we will bring this to market, and it will not have any poisons. If you'd like to talk any more about it, we'll be next door. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, John. An amazing new biochemistry evolution. I think we're just seeing the start of it today. Dr. Jenny Wood is a leading plant scientist with the DPI, and she's based in Tamworth. Jenny has taken her passion and her skill to target a problem for Australian consumers. That is something that actually Ed mentioned earlier, finding healthy food alternatives that minimise food wastage. Let's hear more from Jenny.
Thank you. Hi, it's great to see so many of you here from across the industry today. I hope you're having a really great time. I'm Jenny, and I am passionate about pulses. If you don't know what pulses are, they are grain legumes like lentils, chickpeas, and faba beans. They are sustainable, high in protein, and they are super healthy. We should all be eating more of them. Food waste and kids' lunch snacks are another two issues that I am concerned about as a food scientist. Let me ask you a question. Why are we throwing away good, nutritious food and feeding kids bad food? I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these three problems and how that led me to innovate. Problem number one, none of us eat enough pulses, so you better all get to work on that. Australia exports 90% of the pulses that we grow. Despite that, we are still a very tiny player in the global market. That means we are price takers. We have no control and we are subject to price fluctuations. In comparison, India is a big player. They grow a lot of pulses and they can't keep up with the consumption of their population. So they import a lot of pulses as well. And India is one of our major buyers. They have recently imposed a tariff of 60% on all the pulses that they innovate. That means that Australia now pays a 60% tax on pulses that we send to India. And that's a big hit to our farmers' back pockets. So how are we going to reduce our reliance on those exports? Now, problem number 2 is what Ed was talking about earlier, food waste. We all know it's a huge problem here in Australia and globally. If I'm a vegetable farmer, part of my crop will look like this. It'll be too small, too big, the wrong shape, or it'll just be plain ugly and I can't sell it. So I feed it to stock or it's left to rot. As much as 40% of Australian fruit and vegetables is rejected and never makes it to the supermarket. We need to find a use for this nutritional resource. Yes, I'm a scientist, but I'm also a mum. And I know how hard it can be to get your kids to eat their vegetables. I struggle to find healthy lunchbox snacks that my kids will actually eat. And I know I'm not alone. Have a look at these recent headlines that were in the media. As a busy parent, packaged foods are amazing. They are so convenient for lunchboxes. I can keep them in the pantry for weeks. They don't require any food prep. They don't go off. And best of all, the kids can pack it themselves. But I can't find many healthy options out there. And the healthy options that I can find don't taste all that great. Why can't healthy be tasty? So I pulled my team together. They're experts in pulses and food science. And we decided that we had a solution that could make a difference to all 3 problems. Our solution was to develop snacks that use pulses and ugly vegetables, and these snacks would be tasty and healthy. So we set to work, introducing hidden treasures. We now have 3 prototypes: a biscuit, a baby rusk, and a cracker. All of our products are vegan, allergy-friendly, have Healthy Star ratings between 4 and 5. They meet the Healthy School Canteen guidelines, which are going to be mandated next year. And they count towards your daily recommended servings of vegetables and legumes. And best of all, kids love them. And I've got proof. We went to a school and we fed them our biscuits and we asked for feedback. How many days a week do you want this in your lunchbox? And 96% said they wanted it in their lunchbox. 96%. Convenience, health, and taste can coexist. And by the way, they taste good with a cuppa too. Hidden treasures are a range of convenient, allergy-friendly, healthy snacks, and kids love them. We want to get these products out to market for the benefit of kids' health, parents' sanity, and to support our Aussie farmers. So if you are an investor, a manufacturer, or a food distributor, please come and have a chat with me. We are also interested in anyone else who wants to try to get pulses into the food system, into food products, research around pulses. We've got that expertise. Come and see me. I'll be in the exhibition area after the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our 9 pictures that we wanted to talk to you about and show you today. I think you've seen basically every bit of the dimension of the ag spectrum from paddock to plate in terms of an idea, an innovation that is really going to transform and change Australia. And thank you so much for coming here today. But I won't talk anymore. We have the Minister here. If he could come down to say a few words. It's going to be a slow journey because he's had a few difficulties. But before he gets up, please give all of the people that pitched today one more welcome round of applause, please. Thank you. You've got a microphone. Thank you, Minister.
We on? Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations to all of those pitchers this morning. I think we should give them all another round of applause. As Minister for Primary Industries, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to stand at the back of the room and to see the work that our first group that have gone through the Gate and Orange have been able to not only refine their ideas, but also be at a point where they can stand up and pitch them to an audience and hopefully to investors in a confident way that we've just seen this morning. So once again, congratulations to everyone, and it's a good opportunity to give a bit of a shout out that the next round of applications for the Gate are open. So if you do know someone else that may benefit from this program, please encourage them to apply. This to me is a really exciting day and a real milestone for us as a government, because it clearly delivers on the principles that I as Minister and us as a government believe that are fundamental to the future of primary industries and food and fibre production, not just here in New South Wales, but also around the world. Firstly, it's the culmination of fantastic partnerships. And obviously, we've been working with some key players with Spark Labs, and also there's been great participation and support from Cisco, but also some of those other organisations like GRDC and some of the industry groups that have partnered with government to make sure that we get the Gate up and running, but also that we can help to work and solve some of those problems that those sectors are facing. So to me, it's a fantastic milestone to be able to celebrate today that first group, but also the fact that we know that the partnerships and the people that we are working with are making sure that this program is a success. And what I hope you've seen today, and what you'll continue to see from the Spark Labs group this afternoon, but also anyone that's been participating in these programs, is that they're there to assist us to solve some of the problems that not just myself as a legislator or a policy setter are wanting to challenge, but more importantly, what our sectors are wanting us to challenge and to solve. And just watching that last presentation around waste and food waste, that's one of the things that we've set, that we want to make sure that we have a primary industry sector here in New South Wales that's working towards zero waste. Because we know that that is something that consumers want, we know that's something that will increase sustainability, but if we can take out some of that waste, we can hopefully increase productivity for our producers here in this state. You know, as a government, we've set challenges to DPI to have a look at what does the role of food, for example, play in areas or timelines like 2030. And we know that the challenges between now and 2030 aren't so much going to be whether we can do things, they're more going to be challenges around whether we should do things, because some of the biggest challenges may be ethical challenges, challenges around things like the discussions around what we use with genomes and genetically modified foods, how we increase the nutritional value of the food that we produce. Yeah, we're great at producing lots of food, but we're also needing to make sure that we increase that nutritional value of food. And as a parent as well, I love the fact that we're listening to the challenges that mums and dads have as well, particularly when you go into the supermarkets. I've got a 14-year-old, and feeding cereal to a 14-year-old, I almost have to get another job to keep the feed up to him. And even government policies like the Health Star ratings, that also not only can help parents make more informed decisions, but it makes my job easier. Sure, mate, you can pick anything in the cereal aisle as long as it has 4.5 stars. And that's been great because some of our food processors have also then stepped up and changed some of the formula, for example, of our cereals to be able to meet some of those requirements. So we need to increase that nutritional value. We need to get rid of waste. We need to have a look at what else we need to be doing of food. Are we going to be having customised dietary requirements where you can almost order the type of foods that you want, the cereals that you want based on your needs? Are we looking at the world in relation to how we deliver other pharmaceuticals or other types of products through food? These are some of the challenges that we need to think about now. And they're the challenges that we've put to DPI. Because DPI, the Department of Primary Industries, the former Department of Agriculture in this state, it's been solving these problems since back in the 1800s. Around 1888, 1889, the government was faced with a problem where there were crops failing in the northern part of New South Wales, and the government of the day set up the Department of Agriculture and then a university or a research organisation which included tertiary education in the former Hawkesbury Agricultural College in 1891 to solve problems that we were facing on the production side, and we've been around ever since. And we are now in the top 1% of agricultural research institutes in the world, or organisations. And that's why it's also imperative that we position the gate to be out there with our team in Orange, out there in traffic, making up and providing access to our 14,000 hectares of research land that we own in New South Wales, opening up and seeing where we can have people have a look at our data and seeing how they can use that to solve those problems. But more importantly, being that facilitator between the person with the ideas, the government agency that is knowing and trying to fix the problems of the future, backed up by our researchers, backed up by our data, backed up by our assets, but more importantly then linked in with industry that is going to be the key to the uptake and the implementation of the technology or the innovation of the idea on farm. Because that's not our role. Our role is not to actually be that one marketing out there a lot of these things, and we can play a role, but that's industry's role. Research is no good if it sits on a shelf. Research may be great for some, but if no one knows about it, and more importantly, if it doesn't get implemented and widely distributed and talked up by industry, then it can be a missed opportunity. And that's what is fantastic about what we're seeing here at the gate. That is what is fantastic about our relationships. But more importantly, it's fantastic to be a minister when the department comes with some solutions to the questions you've been asking and some ideas and gives you a brief and says, hey, we're thinking about this. There can be no better feeling than what I've got today to be able to stand up and see it being presented on stage. So I just wanted to say once again, thank you to everyone that's been involved. This is a success because of that involvement. I'm really excited about some of the ideas, and I know that the thing that's standing between you and the people that have pitched those ideas is this speech. So I'm going to wrap this up because we want to get you out talking to the people that need your assistance and your help. But can I thank everyone for the opportunity to come and say hi. Once again, congratulations, and I look forward to seeing what's coming out of the rest of the opportunities that we have, the rest of the ideas, and making sure that we continue with that linkages, particularly with those that are in the sector that can provide that mentorship and advice and support. So ladies and gentlemen, congratulations, good luck with the rest of the afternoon, and thanks for being a part of which I think is a historical event, and that's seeing our first intake from this year presenting their ideas for opportunity this afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Minister. That concludes this afternoon. I'd like to thank my GATE team for pulling everything together. Krista Mentox, Janine, Percy, Debbie Kite, Daniela Jolly and Michael Bullen, and all the other DPI staff that have been involved. Go grab some lunch and go and check out our presentations. All the presenters are next door, their kit's next door. Please enjoy yourself.